Same time that this was going on, my kids were growing up. And so I had children who were young, and I remember my son was just going into kindergarten at about that time. And so I was able to see what a 4 and 5-year-old child was doing. And when you look at a typically developing 4 and 5-year-old child, you know, when you're working with children with, you know, severe language delays, these kids look like geniuses because they learn things. You just say something and they've got it. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to go over it again. Sometimes you do, of course. But a lot of things, you just start naming something, all of a sudden they see that that thing has a name. They now know that they can ask for things, and so if they know the name of it, they can ask for it. And this just appears to happen miraculously. Well, it turns out when you're looking at children with language delays, you've got to work these skills, you know, very, very hard to teach them. You've got to make sure that you use good teaching methods to do it. But what I found was that kindergarten-age children had a lot of basic learner skills that prepared them to be able to learn in a group format. They could attend to a teacher. They could follow directions. They understood what words meant that people were doing and what the implications were. So this concept of basic learner skills kind of came from that. It's like, what are these skills that allow these children to be able to learn new skills without intensive training? And so that's the concept behind the ABLES, basic learner skills. What are they? And not that anybody can say exactly what they are, but I think over the years we've done a fine job of trying to lay out a lot of the fundamental skills that are important, critical for children, language and other skills that really help them to pay attention and learn from their interactions with others. Because the goal is to try to get these kids to learn as many skills as possible. You know, I don't talk about cure or recovery, or making indistinguishable. I stopped talking about that a long time ago. And I know everybody certainly wants that. They want this all to go away. Nobody wants to have to say, well, you know, a kid with autism, you know, would like to say they're recovered or they're cured or whatever. But I really don't know what those things mean, to tell you the truth. Okay? I think we know that kids are doing well. All kids are going to have various times in their life where they're doing better than others, typical kids as well as kids with developmental disabilities. But the idea is to realize that these are children, this is their life, and even though they're having difficulty acquiring some of the skills that other kids pick up very easily sometimes, what I look for is I want these kids to have a happy life. You know, here on this earth for a very short period of time, they may as well enjoy it, and we should enjoy our interactions with them too. Not say that, oh, it's so bad that we've got this disability here or these delays, but rather let's enjoy them for who they are and let's help them enjoy their life. So I always like to take it from that perspective of what leads you to have an enjoyable life. Well, the more skills you have, the better off you are in terms of being able to participate in community and family events. And so my whole goal is just to make sure that people are aware of the technology that comes from the science of behavior and our teaching strategy, the technology that comes from that, are being used to the best we know how to help move these children along. Because the more skills they get at the earlier age, the better their trajectory, if you will, for their overall development. And so if we can catch them early, provide early intensive behavioral intervention, which has been shown to be, you know, the most effective intervention for these children of all the things that are available, we have to do that. But even if they didn't get that early intervention, maybe it's a little bit later, I always tell people, don't look back. I don't care if it's a child who's now 15 or maybe it's a young adult who's in their early 20s. If they haven't developed some of these basic skills of interaction with people, language skills, then they will still benefit from acquiring those skills even though they're older.
Right,
so
it's never too late.
It's never too late. And I think that's what's really important. And the same techniques that are useful for children at a very early age are also very effective for individuals at an older age.
Let me ask you a question, because
Sure.
this is something that we get asked a lot. When we look at ABLES, what is the specific age range that you see that being applied within?
Okay. Well, again, I'd go back to what I just was talking about. The age range doesn't matter so much in terms of who you might use it with. Now, the reality is that when somebody's a young adult or in their 20s or something, probably people are already kind of understanding that this child, this individual, now an adult, is probably not going to be making major changes at this point in time. They've tried things, and this is where they are. So people may not use those skills or teach those skills in the same way that they might with a younger child. But still, if the individual could learn them, that'd be great. So there's no reason not to. However, when you look at the data that I'm getting now in terms of typical development, it turns out that if you look at the basic learner skills section, not necessarily the academics, but the basic learner skills section, most of those skills are acquired by the child, by the typical child, by the time they're 4 to 5 years of age.
Okay.
Okay. So these skills represent, and that's why I've just presented some data today, actually, up at my talk at Autism One here, regarding the data on that. And 4-year-old, 5-year-old kids have pretty much mastered all of those things. Some kids, even as early as 3 and a half, have mastered most of them. So you have to see it's a small age range in there that we're really looking for in skills. But for many of these skills for children with autism, with developmental aids on the spectrum here, for them to accomplish some of those is a major feat for many of them.
Right,
Okay?
and we've seen junior high kids that have many, many holes within ABLES that definitely identify those. So we know that as far as using it with these individuals, it can go up to any age.
Right, so it really doesn't matter what age. It's really a matter of kind of what's typical for children if you want to make some comparisons.
It's good for us to know that it's that 4 to 5 year range is where a neurotypical child would have typically had those skills, and that gives us, I think, a good measuring rod to look.
Yes.
So that's good.
Yeah, some of the academic skills probably go up into 1st, 2nd grade for some of that, but the self-help skills, the motoric skills, except for maybe riding a bike, most kids by the age of 4 or 5 are doing most of those skills. Yes.
That's fantastic. It's a fabulous tool.
Well,
We're
you.
very, very grateful to have it.
Thank you.
I know also that you have a new web ABLES. Tell us about that.
Well, in trying to help people gain access to the ABLES, the ABLES has 544 items in it. There's a lot in there. And what you find is that a lot of time parents and teachers spend a great deal of time trying to update the information, and then they have to go and write a report, or they have to develop a new IEP, and hence you got to go back to the computer and start writing again and putting in the progress and typing in the progress. Well, it turns out that we've got this wonderful web out there now that has made it possible for us to set up a web-based ABLE. So it's an internet application of the ABLES R, and basically what people do is they sign up for a subscription to it for each child, get a license for it, and then what happens is they can track the child by entering the data on through our website, and we have it in a stored database. It's secured, where they can then go in and do updates very, very quickly by just clicking and making the changes on the computer. Now, that in and of itself isn't much different than what we normally do with the paper version of it. But what is beneficial is the fact that you can generate reports very quickly from it. So once you've got all the information in there, you can actually click on one of the screens, and what it'll do is it'll show a composite of all the child's scores on there from all the previous assessments and updates. And then there's little flags on it, so what you're able to do is click the flag next to the item, and what it'll do then is allow you to select up to 50 different items that you may want to use for an IEP. Now, 50 is probably a bit much for most IEPs.
Right.
So, but if you were to pick, say, 20 or 30 items that you've prioritized, that these are the skills the child needs to work on developing now, what happens is it then takes all the information about the child. So if it was saying it was Jim, it would say all of the examples that come after you enter the information about the child to begin with would say Jim will be able to touch his nose. So it puts the right gender in there, puts the name in throughout the whole IEP. So you can actually click and it develops an IEP worksheet for you.
That is fabulous.
In which you see the actual score that the child has on that particular item. Over to the left, you've got the objective, and then over to the right, you have the scoring criterion. So you can then highlight, copy and paste the criterion you want into the objective. You can also then enter information in another box about what their current level of performance are, and then you can save that as an IEP, which you can share with your IEP team. So it's all built in with your name, gender, everything's all right there, referring to the child by name. And then you can export that if you need to into an Excel document whereby people can cut and paste that information into school district forms. So for instance, if you're a teacher and you've got a speech and language pathologist, you can share this information over the internet. You can give them access to either view or to modify the reports and or the assessments. So you can work with other individuals. You can have the parents even come in if you want. You can assign them the rights to come in and make changes on things. And you can work together as a team over the internet sharing information like that. And then you can also generate progress reports off that IEP where it'll take the information that you said was currently the case, and then when it generates the progress report, it'll say previously was, and then now you put the current in. So you can make your reports very, very quickly. I can design, if I've got an updated able SAR on a child, I can pretty much lay out, if I know the child, of course you got to know the child,
Right.
always, I can then do an IEP for that child in about an hour, and from start to finish. And when you think of all the hours that are put into developing IEPs, and then the progress reports that follows, you've got it all laid out there, you don't have to reinvent it. It's such an efficient way of doing it that it makes it nice.